All right, welcome to a early Wednesday edition of Buck What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Super Heavyweight. You follow me, I'll follow you back. And I'm joined with my co-host Michael Pless. How you doing tonight, Michael?
Doing good, Gene. Getting closer to the draft, so exciting times.
Jeez, I just wish we can get this over with. And my man, the man of the hour here, Pat Donovan. How you doing tonight, man?
Gentlemen, always good to be with you.
All right. So, I've been dying to get you on here, and I really want to get your take on what you've seen from the end of the season up till now, the progressions. And I know you've seen it as much as I have. People jumping out the window. The Bucs weren't doing anything, and then all of a sudden, Jason Light is signing players that were Bucs players, taking care of home first, and then he goes out and he brings in some free agents. And I just kind of wanted to get your take on it. I know that, you're on the radio and you hear different things. So I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on this, where we are right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, reactionary fans, and I shouldn't even just say fans, because guys I even do radio with, right? We were discussing it on the air. If you don't win day one of free agency, it's reason to panic. But that's not how good football teams operate. And at the end of the day, I've said for a long time, one of the things I always preach is you build from the inside out if you want to win football games. You've got to shore up those lines on both sides if you want to be a good football team. And, to go get a center like Ryan Jensen, like they did on the offensive side of the football, and then do what they've done on the defensive side of the football, completely revamping that defensive line with, Mitch Unrein and Bo Allen and obviously Vinny Curry and Jason Pierre-Paul. They've done a lot. And, I remember talking to Charles Davis not long ago, and of all the kind of exciting moves the Bucs have made, one of the under the radar moves, Charles believes is going to be one of the more valuable moves in Bo Allen. He's a guy that got increasing playing time as the season went along on a very good defensive line in Philadelphia. And I think because he's not a name that jumps out at you, a lot of us don't have huge expectations for the young man, but guys who watch tape, they notice him.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is consistency. That was the one thing that was really hurting on the defensive line throughout the season, was just having that consistent pressure on the quarterback. And I think with guys like Mitch, yeah, I'm trying to sugarcoat this just a little bit. So that's basically what was happening. I mean, it was so easy for teams to rush. And Michael brought up a good point against the Buffalo Bills. Bucs should have won that game. And they run the ball down your throat and win the game. And that's something that needed to be addressed. Anybody that's, any sort of a football person would know that, hey, you got to stop the run. Initially, that's going to help your defense throughout the game if you can stop the run. Michael, what are your thoughts?
I agree with what you guys have said. I mean, I think in free agency they had a plan, and I think that's what matters. They wanted to beef up their lines. They wanted to get tougher up front, and that's something this team has needed. I mean, they've been kind of soft up front the last couple of seasons, and they have to find a way to, like you said, Gene, they have to stop the run, and they have to run the football. So with the additions that they made, I think they help them in those areas.
Yeah, definitely. One guy that I like is Mitch Unrein. I've always liked him, and he's consistent, and to me that's very important. If you can get consistent play, especially on the defensive line. We're in the NFC South. That's like in my opinion, that's one of the toughest divisions in the NFL. I mean, you consider top to bottom, and I'm not just saying that because the Bucs are in that division. Top to bottom, it's a tough division. And, I think that in order for the Bucs to compete, you have to get in there and stop the run.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I keep bringing up other people's good points, but Roy Cummings, who joined us recently as well, we look at Mitch Unrein inside, we look at Bo Allen inside as guys that are going to stop the run, but you also help the pass rush when you do stop the run. And when it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, you'll find that you've got more time to get pressure on a quarterback than when it's 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 3. And that's something the Buccaneers, you guys know, dealt with so much last year, was short third down distance. And, it's too easy for offenses in this league to pick up those first downs. But when you have a longer third down, and now you've got Jason Pierre-Paul and Vinny Curry coming off the edge, and maybe somewhere in there, Noah Spence is blitzing, and maybe you got a double A gap with Quan and Levante. All of a sudden, you've got so many things you can do because of the fact that you can get front four.
Yeah, and that's going to be huge this year. That's going to be really huge. I see other teams loading up, and it's going to be tough. The Bucs have to come with their A game. They have to have a good draft. I mean, they don't have to have a good draft. They have to have an excellent draft just to get in there and be able to compete. So
I'd be surprised if they move down in the draft because of the trade for Jason Pierre-Paul, where obviously they gave up that third round pick. I wouldn't be surprised to see them, somebody. It's very likely there's going to be somebody on the board at number 7, one of those quarterbacks. And if a team wants to jump up and get their quarterback at number 7, the Bucs could find a way to, not just get back that third round pick, but really even add more assets in this year or even next year's draft. So they're in a really good spot at number 7, not only to have a really good draft and add a lot of talent, but really be able to amass some assets for this season and next season, with maybe even more draft picks because of where they are and that number of quarterbacks that people think could be early first-round picks.
Yeah, and I got to ask your opinion. What do you think of this offseason? Have you ever seen this much activity in an NFL offseason?
Well, we've seen this level of free agency, right? Like, we've seen teams break the bank in free agency. What we haven't seen is the trades. You very rarely in this league see guys get traded for draft picks or for other players. It happens from time to time, but with the I think with the added cap space this year that teams are going to have and the ability to kind of make some of those trades a little more palatable because of the fact that, a first round draft pick doesn't cost you $800 million or whatever the hell it used to be. And it's become an easier and a better trade market for teams, and I think we're seeing them kind of adjust to that and figure out how to use that as the Buccaneers did. I mean, listen, would you love to have a third round pick today? Yes. Are you going to get a pass rusher like Jason Pierre-Paul in round 3? No. Absolutely not. So the trade market is what for me was the big difference this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. People weren't able to walk away free. I mean, you had to get some value out of these guys before, getting them off your team. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to a couple of points Pat made. I mean, he was right on about we were facing so many short third downs as far as the defense goes. I believe that's where the opposing offense didn't have a third down. They could just go right down and get, be able to stop the run and then also have ability to see more third and longs is going to help this league. And that's going to lead to more turnovers and better third down defense, which is what we need. So, and then as far as the draft, I think the Bucs are in a great spot. I think, trade down is definitely an option. I think also getting one of the best 3 players in this draft is also an option. I think one of them could very well be there at 7. And if they're not, I think the Bucs will definitely explore a trade down. And don't rule out Derwin James either. I think he's in consideration for that 7th pick. But I think, the ability to trade down, if it's there, you can get a lot of picks and, get a lot of assets to build this team and build the depth, which is what we need.
And I have to ask you guys, I keep hearing a lot of talk about the secondary. Is it something that you guys see the Bucs grabbing somebody, a secondary player, a cornerback or safety with that 7th pick if they don't trade back? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I think it's a possibility. When you think about some of the talent at that position, if a Bradley Chubb falls to you, if a Saquon Barkley falls to you, you might just, trip over yourself running to the podium to get that thing in, right? But outside of those 2 guys, I think it's very likely that the Buccaneers could look at a Derwin James or a Minkah Fitzpatrick or the corner from Ohio State who's slipping my mind at the very moment, who, again, talking to Charles Davis recently, he really likes him as kind of one of those long corners like we saw from Marshawn Lattimore last year, who came in and had a great year for the Saints. But yeah, I think if they stay at 7, there's a very, very good chance that's a secondary player. And I know talking to Charlie Campbell from WalterFootball.com, who has some people with the Buccaneers, talks to some of the scouts over there and stuff. I know they're very high on Derwin James. Do I think that they would trade down before drafting Derwin James if given the choice? I think they would. And that's what he said he believes as well. But if they stay at 7, I think there's a really good chance it's one of those defensive backs, whether it's Derwin James, Minka Fitzpatrick, or even the kid Ward from Ohio State.
So are there a lot of trading partners if the Bucs were? I know you both have mentioned trading back. Are there a lot of potential trading partners? I can think of the Cardinals as one. When you look at their quarterback situation, and I'm not knocking Mike Glennon I kind of am, but I'm not knocking Mike Glennon as a starter or anything.
He's not an NFL starter.
And then, Sam Bradford and Mike Glennon on the same team. I mean, geez, you got to get a rookie in there somehow, some way. Just the way I see it. And they would be a likely trading partner. Would you see them moving all the way up to 7 or trying to move up to 7?
I mean, you just never know what teams think, right? But I think Arizona is a team that definitely makes some sense. I think Buffalo is a team that makes some sense. You're talking about a team who let Tyrod Taylor walk this offseason and doesn't really have an answer at quarterback right now. So, and is a team that has 2 first-round picks, right? So whether it's with the Buccaneers or whether it's with somebody else, they really have the ammunition to be able to get that done if they want to move up for their guy. You never know what teams think. Whatever you hear they think, they probably think something very differently than that. So you just never know who those – and so many times there's a team that you're not thinking about, none of us. And I think the person's a liar if they tell you otherwise. I don't think anybody was thinking about Philadelphia moving up to number 2 for Carson Wentz a few years ago.
No.
And so it's always a team that you don't expect that wants to get up there and get somebody. Teams fall in love with these kids, and they make it happen. So I see Arizona as a team that makes sense. I see Buffalo as a team that makes sense. But a lot of times it's that team you're not thinking about that swoops in and makes the big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one thing last year's draft taught me was with the drafting of O.J. Howard at 19, nobody locally looked at O.J. Howard as potentially landing in Tampa. So,
nobody thought he'd be around that long.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. So pretty much anything, like you said, anything can happen in this draft. And with all the trades, with all the different moves, there's a lot of moving parts going on right now. Cleveland can ruin somebody's draft real easy. And you look at the Colts in the second round and what, all the picks that they have at their fingertips, a lot of different things.
The Patriots have 100 draft picks again.
It's just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you think about this draft, the Patriots have 2 first-round picks and then a couple of seconds and thirds or whatever. Buffalo has 2 first-round picks. The Cleveland Browns have the 1st and 4th overall pick. There, I believe, will be some movement in the first round. How aggressive teams will be, we'll have to find out. But I really do believe that because some teams have some ammunition. I mean, and the Patriots, I don't think they've selected at the pick that they had ever, right? They trade constantly, and now they've got all kinds of assets to do so. Don't be shocked if they move up and take somebody you're not thinking about either.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could definitely see that happening, because with Bill Belichick, you just don't know, what's going to happen. He could turn around and trade that. So I don't know. We'll just kind of have to wait and see what happens. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely, New England to trade up all the way up into the top 10. I think, Chargers are looking at quarterbacks. I know they really love Lamar Jackson. I think there's a bunch of teams. I think Buffalo makes the most sense for Tampa. If Tampa wants to trade back, I think Buffalo makes a lot of sense. Just have, I think Jason Light really wants to get, another second to add assets. So, it's definitely reasonable. But again, I think there's going to be one of those top 3 players there at 7. I think we're going to take one of them. I really love Quentin Nelson. I think Nelson is the ideal choice, because he would complete the offensive line, and that would make your offense that much better. Obviously Saquon Barkley would be, great too. But I think, Jason Light wants to add more picks, and I think if he has a chance, he's going to do it.
The one thing that scares me, you mentioned Lamar Jackson. I do not want to see him end up with the Saints. I really don't. It just, I've been kind of thinking about that. This is one of those things. I know the Saints are real high on him, and it's a very good possibility, him ending up in NFC South. He's kind of he's been overlooked throughout all of this. And I think his numbers, just what he's been able to accomplish in his college career, I think it will translate to the NFL. And I think he'll be very successful, a la Deshaun Watson.
My favorite thing about this draft is the quarterback class, because I don't think there's one quarterback who I've heard everyone in unison say, that kid's going to be fantastic. And I don't know if there's a quarterback, among the top 5 that everyone says that kid's going to be a bust. I think there's a whole bunch of question marks with every one of these kids, but I think there's also a whole bunch of upside with every one of these kids. And I personally have no idea what order they're going to fall. I think we're going to be surprised by what order they fall. I won't be surprised if Lamar goes ahead of some guys that are expected to go ahead of him, because every year the draft falls that way, right? That's why I have this love-hate relationship with mock drafts. I read every single one of them you put in front of me, right? But I know that they're nonsense, right? I hated when I did some writing for an NFL website. I hated doing a mock draft because I knew I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. That's what makes the draft so good, is we know we don't know what the hell we're talking about. So I won't be surprised if they fall in a different order than people expect, but I'm really intrigued by this whole class, because I think every one of them has some qualities that make you think this kid could be special at that position. And they all have some question marks that make you think he may not be ready for the NFL ever.
Yeah. And, it's funny. I think back to Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning. That's where, I started thinking about quarterbacks. It's like, how do you know that you drafted the right guy? As things as moved down the line. And then we saw with Carson Wentz and, some of the other quarterbacks in his class, and not all of them were successful. So far, I shouldn't say not all of them were successful, but you have some that just haven't panned out so far. Maybe it's the system they're playing in. I'm not sure. So, it's going to be fun to kind of wait and see what's going on. So, another thing I wanted to kind of touch on, I wanted to get your thoughts on the coaching.
I'll have to probably get out here after this one.
Okay. No worries. I just wanted to get your opinion on the coaching, and do you think they have the ability to kind of learn from their mistakes? Because on this show, I check out the chat a lot, and there are a lot of people that are kind of naysayers about the coaching staff. So I just kind of wanted to get your opinion. I know that you kind of get the same thing on your show when you're doing your show. People want to run these guys out of town already. And is it possible that these guys learn from their mistakes and they're able to turn things around?
Yeah, absolutely. Does it mean they will? No. And look, I don't think Dirk Cutter did a great job last year. Although I thought to fire another head coach after 2 years would have been a grave mistake for this franchise. I thought it would have been a horrible mistake for this franchise, because eventually if you fire a head coach every 2 years, eventually you're just the team that fires head coaches every 2 years, and no coach of any value is going to want to coach for you. So I'm glad they gave Dirk Cutter a third year. I thought he deserved a third year. I thought last year went horrifically wrong from the second that Irma hit. And I'm not saying that Irma is the reason why they lost.
It was just an off season.
Yeah, it changed the season for them. And just everything from that point on was just weird, from Jameis's injury to the fact that, by the way, Jameis was hurt before most people thought Jameis was hurt, to, just everything went wrong for this team last season. And I don't think Mike Smith has forgotten how to coach. And we're still finding out if Dirk Cutter is ready to be a head coach. And there's a lot of things that I think he leaves to be desired at that position. There's a lot of questions I have for the job he's doing. But I thought he was the guy for the job. I said he was the guy for the job when they gave him the position. And when they gave him the position, I knew he was a guy that had never had been a head coach in the NFL. And if you have a guy who's never been a head coach in the NFL, and you're going to hand him the keys, you damn well better be ready.
Yeah.
To grow through some of the growing pains with that guy and understand that it's not going to be perfect right away. So I think this is obviously a do or die year for Dirk Cutter. Things have to look a lot better than they have. There's some mistakes that have to stop happening. But remember, this is a team that was it seemed like they had a procedure penalty on every other snap a couple years ago. Those are down. So there's things that you can point out and say they're doing better. But overall, Dirk Cutter still has a lot to prove to this fan base, and I'm not surprised or disappointed that people have those expectations for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thank you so much. Hey, thank you so much for being on, and shout out to the Goon Squad.
Yes.
I wear this shirt everywhere, man. I hate to take it off. But I just
appreciate it, brother.
I want to thank you for being on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
You guys be good.
All right. And folks, that was Pat Donovan from 620. And I was glad to have him on. Get his perspective. He's one of those guys I really respect his opinion, and it was good to have him on. So Michael Pless, I want to get your thoughts. I mean, we haven't been on for a week, and there's not a lot going on, but have you kind of changed where you think that that Tampa's going to end up as far as the draft? I mean, are you pretty much do you think everything's going to pretty much stay the same?
Yeah, I mean, I've been, kind of on repeat with this. It's either the top three guys, whether it's Bradley Chubb, Saquon Barkley, Quentin Nelson. If you can get one of those guys, you take them no matter what. And if they're not there, I think you look at a trade down option. I think obviously if all three of those guys are gone, there's going to be a quarterback left on the board. And I think they're going to, be able to make a trade down with Buffalo or Miami or Arizona and rack up some picks and, make the best of it. And then you go however far back you trade, you just take the best player available. And, I know a lot of people are looking at the secondary. I think, I look at it this way. I think the Bucs need to address the running game. They have to find a way to get the running back in the first two rounds. They have to come away with a legit running back out of these first two rounds, I think, because if you have a running game, it's going to help your defense. It's going to help your offense control the clock better. You're going to be better in the red zone. So I think that's number one priority. And then I look at the free agents that are available still. I think there's still some free agents in the secondary that could be available as a Band-Aid. So really, I'm looking at that running game to be the priority. And I think whether you get a running back and a defensive back early or running back and a guard, I think, that's the way they're going to go.
In my opinion, and I could be wrong here, I really feel like if the Bucs can get a good running back, if they can get 1,000-yard rusher, I mean, I'm not asking for a whole lot here, but they can get 1,000-yard rusher. I mean, that does wonders for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. I mean, that just opens up a whole nother dimension on this offense that we haven't seen for 2 years. I mean, when you look at the running game and how ineffective the running game has been the last 2 seasons, just imagine, you have a team that went 9-7, and just imagine if they had a rock solid running game. It's a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's why I think they got to find a way, whether if they get a first round back or if they get it back in the second round, I think that's where they're going to target. I just feel they can't wait until the fourth round or fifth round to get a running back. I think there's going to be, the quality is just not going to be there. Yeah, there'll be some good running backs that can do some things, but I think they have to find a dynamic running back to pair up with Jameis Winston and Mike Evans and finally get that legit trio that they're looking for. And I think that's got to be the goal. I think the offensive line right now is good enough. If they get a dynamic running back there, I think he can make things happen and make them look better than they are. And I think that would be the way to go. As far as the secondary, I think it's a deep secondary class. I think they could actually wait until day 3 if they want to, get a safetier corner and go that way. But sorry, I'm at a different house and there's dogs. Yeah, they're going nuts. But yeah, I mean, I think they're in a great spot. Either way, I think it's a win-win. And I think Jason Light's going to have a lot of possibilities to do a lot of things here.
Yeah. To me, I've always been kind of like, well, you get the best player on the board. But if you're able to move back and pick up a draft pick, and I think you guys both mentioned it tonight, it's possible that the Bucs could pick up a 3rd round pick, if they trade back a 3rd or 4th round pick. That makes a big difference right there, So to me, that's something that's exciting to me. I think that with those kind of moves, I think the Bucs can do some things. This is a deep draft, so anything can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just going to be fun to watch because I think those first 6 picks are going to be pretty unpredictable. We were speaking about the quarterbacks earlier. There's a possibility Josh Allen could go 1st overall, which is just crazy to me because I think he's a 2nd to 3rd round prospect in my eyes. I mean, when I watch his tape, I don't think he should be in the 1st round. I think he should be, maybe 2nd, 3rd round guy. Yeah, he's got a strong arm, but it's just his tape is just not very consistent. I would take Lamar Jackson over him any day. And I think Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Baker Mayfield, they're all kind of in the same stratosphere. I think they're all pretty similar. I mean, they offer different things, but I think they're more deserving than Josh Allen as far as top 5 material. So I think that's crazy, but hey, if the Browns do it, then that's good news for us because it's going to mean quarterbacks are going to go early and that's going to drop somebody that can really help us at pick 7.
That's right. And I just hope the Cleveland Browns do Cleveland Brown things. So that's what I'm really hoping for myself. I know that either Chubb or Barkley or Nelson's going to be gone within the first 6 picks. So,
you think so?
I've kind of reserved myself to that. It would be awesome if the Bucs had that, were able to make that move, but I just don't see it happening.
Gotcha.
So, and again, we've kind of been talking about this, and we're getting closer to the draft, and I just wanted to kind of see. Corey Fleming is saying Saquon Barkley to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, hey, Corey, I'm going to hold you to that. If you're not following me on Twitter, get with me on Twitter, and I will definitely. I'll hook you up with a T-shirt. If you are right and they get Saquon Barkley, you just called it. I will hook you up with a T-shirt. Just let me know. So I just want to put that out there. But
I think it's definitely possible.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not taking anything away. We saw OJ Howard drop from a top 10. He should have been in the top 10, drop all the way down to number 19. So anything can happen. So, that's one of those things. The Sports Web, follow him on the Sports Web. Peter Blake, checking out the show. Thank you for checking us out. Again, this is an exciting time. And, I just don't know what else to say, man. I mean, I love the draft. And for me, from the draft until I would say camp, I'm super excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, the draft is just so unpredictable. Like you said, getting OJ Howard last year, and I think it's definitely reasonable that we could get the best offensive player again this year. Running back is not a high value position. The same thing with guard. That's why I think, Quentin Nelson or Barkley could be there at 7 just because of their positions. And they're probably the best 2 players in this draft. And I think, just with the teams that are needing quarterbacks, I think, it's a real chance that, one of them can be there. I think you're going to see teams, try to trade up. I know Buffalo wants to get into that top 5. So it's going to be interesting. I think the Colts are going to be interesting too, because I could see them trading down again.
They're going to ruin somebody's draft too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, It's going to be interesting. And I think, the players that, everybody's predicting to be top 6, could be completely different just because we just don't know who teams like and who they prefer. I think you could see an offensive lineman besides Nelson being the top 6. I think you could see linebackers in there as well. Maybe even a safety. I think Derwin James has a chance to go ahead of Tampa's pick. So it's going to be interesting.
Do you think that they would go Derwin James? To me, I'm not real sure where
Are you talking
we
about
are.
Tampa or?
Yeah, I mean, because the Colts picked before us, right?
Right.
So, I've been watching Andrew Luck's progressions, and do you see could possibly the Colts possibly be looking at a quarterback? I mean, because we don't know 100% that he's going to be even ready for the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he hasn't even started throwing yet, so yeah, I think it's definitely possible that they could consider a quarterback. I think any position for the Colts is pretty much up for grabs. I think, you know, I think linebacker is a possibility. I think Roquan Smith has a chance to go in there. I think the kid from Notre Dame, Mike McGlinchey, I think is a possibility for top 5. Cleveland needs a left tackle. Joe Thomas just retired, so
right.
That's definitely a possibility.
So when you're talking about a Roquan Smith, I haven't heard a lot of people, talking about him. I mean, do you see him as a potential top 10 pick?
I think so. I think his tape is justifies it. I think he's good enough. He's a great sideline to sideline player. So yeah, definitely. I think he's got the ability, but he's definitely going top 12. I don't think he makes it past the 12th pick. So, and that's why I think the Colts could trade down if they really like Roquan Smith. I think they could trade down again and pick him up. That could be an option.
Yeah. I just don't see Tampa trading up. It's the only thing in this draft that I can almost 100% say is that Tampa will not trade up. I just don't see it. Not with all the needs that they have that they could potentially address in this draft. I just don't see them giving up anything else. I think what they've done is actually put themselves in a position to where they can, better this team. They can still turn around and trade, if they have the right trading partner and pick up a 3rd round pick or 4th round pick again. So that's extremely possible.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if they trade down, they're definitely getting a 2nd round pick in return. And I think they could easily get a future pick as well. If they're trading down with Buffalo, I think they can easily, get a 2nd and a 3rd round pick and maybe a future 3rd round pick next year. So it's it's definitely enticing. I think it's going to be there if like you say, the top 3 players are off the board and a quarterback is available. I think they'll make a team pay for it. It's when you're trading up for a quarterback, that price goes up, and I think Jason Light will take advantage of it if the opportunity arises. But again, it takes 2 to tango, and they could be in love with Derwin James if they want to stay there and take him at 7. I could see that, but if they do that, then they have to take a running back in the 2nd round. I don't buy the whole, get a safety and then get a corner, in the 2nd round. They have to get a running back in the top 2 rounds, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That's a position that really hasn't been 100% addressed, and it needs to happen. And they didn't go out in free agency and grab a running back. They're basically looking at keeping the people that they already have in-house, and so it looks like their next move is to get somebody out of the draft, and I think that's a smart move. Again, that running game is going to open up so much for Jameis Winston, and I can't stress that enough. Just how important the running game has been. I mean, when you consider you had 2 running backs last year that combined for 825 yards, it's disgusting. That's unacceptable. You can't win any games like that. So yeah, they need that dynamic running back. I look at Alvin Kamara. That is the best example that I can really come up with. He's a guy that all 32 teams passed on him. Yeah. And then, it was, finally the Saints, when the Saints drafted him, that all worked out for him. So, again, it's like somebody's trying to get on the air.
Yeah, no. Dogs.
But anyway, that's just, that's kind of what I'm seeing here. I think that this is going to, eventually work out for the Bucs. And, again, I was probably in the minority, but I feel like the Bucs are going to bounce back, which kind of leads me into the segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you saw the tweet with Deshaun Jackson working out with Jameis Winston.
Yep.
So again, it's one of those things. To me, last season was all about familiarity. I just didn't see the familiarity there. And, again, you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's great that they're working out together. I think that's going to help them a lot. I think the chemistry last year just wasn't there. So I'm laughing at the chat.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, I think the chemistry is going to be definitely better. I think they know they have to get that deep ball down. I think they have to be better with their slants and their short routes, and I think that's going to be a part of the offense. I think Deshaun's going to have a much better season, and I think Jameis is going to be more comfortable back there, especially if they have a running game like I expect them to. I think that's going to open up a lot of things downfield and make them better. So. Yeah, I think that's great that he's working with him, and I know Mike Evans is working with Jameis as well. So, that's great. I think they're going to get better, and I think OJ Howard is a guy to watch out for too. I think he's going to take that next step as well.
I'm right there with you, and just kind of rewinding back to when Mike Evans had his so-called bad season with all the alleged drops or whatever, and he still caught for over 1,000 yards and. People were jumping out the window talking about trading him and getting rid of him and all this other stuff. Again, it was familiarity. Once Jameis Winston and Mike Evans got together, you see the rest is history. I mean, Mike Evans could potentially be the leading receiver in Bucs history going into the end of next season. So it's familiarity. So all the things that happened last season, I'm kind of leaving them there and hoping and praying that, things get changed. I think the one thing that really concerns me is the coaching. Will these coaches make adjustments? Will these coaches go back and look at the film and on themselves and say, hey, I didn't do this right. I need to adjust this. Will they do that, or will they stay the course? As Pat Donovan mentioned, these coaches have not forgotten how to coach. I just think, again, it's just one of those things where so many different things happen. And I think a lot of fans are going to be pleasantly surprised next year. And I have very high expectations that, this coaching staff will turn things around. And with the addition of Brenson Buckner, I think that, they'll definitely be a changed team compared to what you saw last year.
Yeah. I mean, I have some concerns. I have, I still offense. I worry about, game management and, just overall scheming as far as, going away from the run too early, just certain tendencies, trying to set up the deep ball without, utilizing the short game and the run game and setting things up off of play action. So just, little things that I'm concerned with, the defensively, our scheme as far as our secondary being used, Vernon Hargreaves being used in off coverage when he's a better press man corner. So just little things like that, I'm hoping they can fix, make adjustments, understand who they have as far as their team goes, and try to build schemes around them instead of trying to fit guys into a square peg or trying to force them to do things that they're just not comfortable with. I think that's, something that I'm hoping they can get better at and try to play to their strengths a little bit better. But yeah, I think this coaching staff knows that this is it. I mean, they have to make it happen this year. They have to be better with their decision making, and I think we'll see that. I think Dirk Cutter is a smart guy. He's not stupid. I think he'll make it, he'll make what he needs to do and make it work. And it starts with Jameis Winston. I think if they can protect him and get him on track and be the guy that he was in the last 4 games, I think we're going to see a really good team.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that this is their season right here. And I think, like you mentioned, they are playing for their job. So, they have to get this right.
Yeah,
they really do. So, we never know. You never know what's going to happen here. So it could, anything can happen. Oh,
yeah. Oh, lost the chat.
Sorry about that.
But no, I agree. I think they're smart people. And again, it's just hopefully in this draft we can build some depth. But again, I think, running back and guard need to be the top priorities. When I look at our corners and our safeties, I think we're still good as far as that goes. I think our depth there is better than, say, running back, where we only have, Peyton Barber and Jacquizz Rodgers. So, the need is obviously greater at that position. And then at guard, I think I would like to see them add a legitimate, starting guard if they can, whether that be in the first round with Quinn Nelson or, get a guy in the 4th round or 2nd round, however it may be, however the draft turns out. Ideally, we address those positions in the first 2 rounds, guard or running back or vice versa.
Yeah. So again, I just wanted to see, what were your thoughts on that, and how do you feel that this is gonna work out? Okay, hold on one second. I'm fixing the chat here because the chat got broken.
No problem.
It was one of those nights.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's the off season. It's the off season, so we have these things happen in the off season, so we can work on this. So I noticed that you have some new articles out, and I wanted to see if you could kind of talk about the new articles that you have just released.
Yeah, I mean, really just talking draft prospects. I really want to amp that up, and we're only 15 days away from the draft. So, I just recently wrote an article about Nick Chubb, and I think he can be a legit target in that 2nd round. I really like his game. Big physical back, a guy that has balance, and really reminds me of Kareem Hunt from last year, who I really wanted the Bucs to take. He was my guy. And he had a great year. So, I think Nick Chubb could be someone similar to that. I think he can be a 3-down back. I think he can catch the football out of the backfield if necessary. So, I wrote about him. I wrote about Tony Adams, who's a guard who I think we could get in day 3. A 3-year starter. Guy's a team captain, good character guy. Pretty physical, good right guard that could step in and be a starter for you. Let me see what else. And then I just talked about as far as options, as far as for the 7th pick. I think there's going to be pretty much win-win scenarios for the Bucs there. And I think that's going to help them. So, and then as far as future articles, really just going to emphasize as far as the running game. I'm going to put an article about that and how that is really the key to this team being successful. I think if they can find a way to get a consistent running game, it doesn't have to be fantastic. It doesn't have to be top 5, but if it gets top 15 and be a consistent threat, I think that's going to make our team much better. It's going to help the defense be more rested, and which is going to make them better. I think too many times they just wore out at the end of the games, and you could see that, and they were just letting teams go right down the field. And that's why we probably lost a lot of games late. So, just stuff like that, and continue talking about draft and prospects. And it's getting closer, and I can't wait. I mean, me and Mark are going to be on top of it, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah. Another guy I wanted to ask you about was Nyheim Hines. Have you watched him? Why don't you give your perspective on him? I know that they were asking about him here in the chat.
Yeah, I think he's a really good player. He reminds me of a lot of Darren Sproles. I think he's that type of guy, a little bit bigger, 5'9", about almost 200 pounds. Great speed. He has pretty much can do it all. I mean, he's a runner receiver, can return the ball as well as far as special teams, which is a bonus. And can pass protect if need. So I think he's a good 3-down back. I don't think he's a feature back. I think you need to pair him up with somebody. I think he could definitely be a target. If the Bucs want to, let's say the Bucs do trade down, I think, and they do have a 3rd-round pick, I think he could be their guy if they want to wait and maybe pair him up with another running back if they want to take 2 running backs in this draft, or if they're confident enough in Peyton Barber that he could be the 1st and 2nd down guy and use Hines as the, change of pace and utilize him that way. I think that could be an option, but ideally I would like to see, another 3-down back, paired with him. I think that would make a dynamic duo, but he can do a lot of things. If he's there in the 4th round, I think the Bucs do consider him.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, again, that's one of the things that I've noticed that hasn't really been talked about a lot is the running game. And it's been missing. It's been missing in action since 2015, when Doug Martin had that huge year. But anything after that, has just been non-existent pretty much. And it's something that they definitely have to get addressed. And the one thing that scares me about some of these players that we've been talking about are injuries. And, that's why I'm kind of, I don't know, I kind of take a step back when we're talking about these players, because that's been the Achilles heel of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, specifically over the past 2-3 years, is injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Players that you get, and they're highly touted players, you bring them in and they're out for 3, 4, 5 games. And that puts your team, that hurts your team because they're on the bench. They're not out there producing. So, I see a lot of names. I hear a lot of people mention, but the one thing that always concerns me is, can they stay healthy enough to get out there and make a difference?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's probably like the main concern probably with Nick Chubb. I mean, just because he had that knee injury, a few years back, but he came back really strong. I kind of look at it that way, see how the guys return if they do have a serious injury. And Nick Chubb did a great job of really making himself stronger. And he came back, pretty much the same player, maybe not as explosive, but I thought he was really good, the last 2 years. So, yeah, I mean, you're right about that. When I'm looking at prospects, that's the first thing I look at is see how many injuries they've had. Are they on the field consistently? Do they miss time, whether it's during practice or, during the week? How many games are they missing per year? So that's definitely a thing you got to look at. And that's probably the biggest thing these scouts and GMs look at is the medicals. I mean, that's the big indicator of how much production are you going to get out of this guy? If you're only going to have him for 4 years, is it worth it? Is it worth it if he's going to break down in a year or two? They have to make that choice and make that decision. And ideally, they try to stay away from those kind of guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Ricky here had mentioned something. He said, I would like for the Bucs to act big and touch the running back, make the running game more balanced. Like an Alabama running back. I don't know. Al, when you talk about running backs, I mean, we could look at running backs as a whole, but I'm not sure. Some of them are kind of late bloomers, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Scarborough from Alabama is interesting, but I mean, he runs too upright for me, and that leads to injuries. But
now,
I
do you think that's something that's coachable?
It's possible, but again, it's the style that he runs. I mean, he's a big boy. I mean, he kind of has that Derrick Henry type style. So yeah, I mean, it works. I mean, Derrick Henry is a great back. I think he does a good job. But I mean, again, it's not ideal for running backs. And then you look at Damian Harris, he's a little bit more smaller, a little more shiftier. So, I mean, it's possible. But again, like I said, I'm pounding the table for us to take one of these top running backs in the first or second round. I think we have to look at one of those guys early.
Yeah. I won't be mad if they do. That's one of those things that I really don't have a dog in the race, to sort of speak. I just want whoever the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get in the first round to be able to produce.
Right.
The 2016 draft, just the way it all shook out is just, you got to just throw the whole draft away and start over. But,
Right.
Again, I just hope whoever Tampa gets is productive day one. Kind of like, kind of like the second and third round picks that we saw last year. They were able to step in and, be productive. So that's kind of what we want to do, is we want to continue to see that. I know somebody had mentioned a running back from Auburn.
Yeah, Kerryon Johnson.
Yeah. I like him, but again, injuries. It just scares me. I mean, he had the labrum in high school, and then he had some other injuries throughout his career at Auburn. So again, I like him, but again, is he going to be able to stay on the field? I don't want to see film of somebody on the sidelines. I'd rather see film of them on the field, And we've seen so much of that over the past 2 years. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I mean, when you break it down, I mean, you look at Ayers. Ayers was brought in, and they expected him to add that little edge to the defense, and you had injuries. I mean, just throughout that defensive line, you had injuries. Doug Martin was inconsistent throughout his career in Tampa because of injuries. You take away the suspension, there was still inconsistency with him staying healthy. So again, just getting the right players. And I kind of go back and forth. My girl works at Phoenix Children's Hospital, and we were talking about injury. I think I was talking to you on the phone about injuries, and she asked me, what kind of training staff do they have? And it's something I haven't really thought about, but could it potentially be an issue with the Bucs training staff where we're seeing all these different injuries, or is that just is that a possibility?
It's possible. Again, it's also goes back to just the player itself. I mean, guys just have to make sure they're doing the right things as far as stretching, making sure we're doing the right conditioning and being in the best shape that we possibly can be. Again, there's just going to be injuries just because of how physical the game is. It's going to happen. The things that you just don't want to see is the hamstrings and the sprained ankles and stuff like that can be avoidable. They can be
nagging injuries.
Yeah, exactly. So those are like the big things. And again, that just goes back to taking care of your body and making sure you're doing the necessary steps to to be stronger and be better as far as being prepared just in case those things do happen. But again, it goes back to some toughness as well. So I don't know. I mean, again, I think we've just been kind of unlucky as far as injury bug goes. I mean, it's just been kind of bad luck. And hopefully, this year we have the depth to, withstand that, because there are going to be injuries. The main thing is you don't want it to happen to your main players, your key players. You want to keep those guys healthy. So hopefully that can happen. But we'll see. I think, they can improve in all areas for sure, as far as the training staff goes and coaches making sure. And it's also on the players as well.
Yeah. And another thing, one more thing I wanted to kind of jump in here with practice being so light, I won't say weak. Would that be a good week? The practices last year just weren't, and there was little contact. And do you think that contributed to the way the team played throughout the season? Because normally your camp can set the tone for your season for a normal team.
Yeah. I mean, Dirk Cutter's philosophy is he wants to get everybody healthy, and to week one, and they didn't have any live hitting during training camp. I mean, it was all pretty much thump, practices where it's thud. You can hit the guy, but you can't bring him to the ground. I mean, there's just no live tackling, which you could kind of tell. I mean, early in the season, I mean, that's why we struggled so much stopping the run. You can kind of see it. Like they weren't really ready to be, physical. It looked like, I mean, but, I think, does he change that this year? I don't know. I mean, I think he likes the philosophy of getting guys healthy, and I do too. I like having everybody in week 1 available, but at some point you got to be a little bit physical and make sure these guys are ready for what they're getting into. But I mean, we'll see. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think, as long as you're prepared and ready for what you need to do schematically, I think you can be fine. I think you can overcome that.
All right. One more question here from the chat. Are you familiar? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Dorrance Armstrong, and I went to KU. That's horrible. That's horrible.
Well, their football team's not that great, so
yeah, pretty non-existent. I think of Aqib Talib, and before that, June Henley. But again, I just don't know a lot about. Recently, I don't know a lot about KU's football team. Ricky, if you check us out next week, I will do some research on this guy, this defensive end, and
he's a great athlete.
Oh, really? So you have seen him?
Yeah, he's a great athlete. Again, just not very polished, very raw player. I think he's got the prototypical size you're looking for as far as defensive end. He's just a great athlete. I mean, he can fly, up and down the sidelines and make plays that way. But as far as pass rushing, still needs a lot of work as far as a game plan goes, as far as how to rush the quarterback. But he's got the tools. I mean, if he's committed to football and he loves the game, I think he could be somebody. I probably see him right now as a day 3 guy, a guy that could go later in the draft.
Yeah, and there's another defensive end who was actually predicted. I can't think of his name, from Texas. Not Texas. He was predicted to go top 10 for a little bit, and then his stock dropped. I can't think of the guy's name.
Probably thinking of Arden Key.
Arden Key.
Yeah, LSU.
Yeah, LSU. So there's another guy, and I know that Peter Blake from SportsWeb had asked about him, and I just kind of wanted to know what are your thoughts on him? I mean, I think there's a lot of work. He needs a little bit of work, but I just didn't see him as a top 10 pick personally. But I see him as somebody who could definitely help a defense.
Yeah, I mean, he's a interesting case because he's shown production. I mean, a couple years back he had over 12 sacks in the SEC, which is really good. I mean, that's great production. This past season he was okay. He had, he still did good. He had about 8.5 sacks. No, it was less than that. I'm sorry. He probably had I think it was 4 or 5. But he's an interesting person. I mean, he's got the athletic skills. Not overly fast. I mean, he ran a 4.85. Skinny though. I mean, he's only 238, so he's got a lean, skinny build as far as body type. But I mean, he's got long arms. He's really quick as far as short area space. So, and he's got the ability to rush a passer. I mean, he's got some good moves. The only thing I worry about at him is just character, some off-field stuff. Is he committed to football? Does he love the game? I mean, if he shows that he loves the game and he really wants to be great, then I think he's worth consideration. But I probably wouldn't touch him till the 3rd round. I think he's a 3rd round or maybe even 4th round guy, just based off of character of what he's shown. But the talent is definitely there. I think he's got a lot of talent for sure.
All right. So again, that's something that's pretty, that's pretty promising. And I would love, if anybody knows how I can get into $1 and kind of get a look at that draft board, I would love to. I'll undertake that mission to see if I can get in there and see it. It's really interesting to see how Jason Light thinks on certain things and just the moves that he makes. I mean, all you can do is look at the previous draft, and even that in itself is not going to really tell you what Jason Light's going to do this year. So, again, if anybody has a I don't know, a uniform I can get in and maybe pretend to be a cleaning guy or something like that, where I can get close to it, I can get that information on this show. I promise you. Just let me know.
No, they keep that thing in like lock and key, man. They don't reveal it. They put it like in a secret room, man. It's under wraps. So, yeah, I don't even think the employees that work there see it. So it's pretty much hidden.
I can blend in. I'll blend in somehow.
There you go. Yeah.
All right.
I think we'd all love to see it, but I mean,
yeah,
we won't see it till.
Yeah, it's crazy because I was thinking this, at the beginning of the offseason. I would love to see Jason Light's free agency board just to see what these guys, what direction they're going to go. That would be so cool to see what we think they're going to do. So, again, it's just one of those things. Eric Moreno, if Barkley is there at 7, do you take him? Yes. We talked about that at the beginning of the show. Shame on you. Where have you been? You're supposed to watch the show all the way from the beginning to the end, buddy.
Barkley's a no doubter. I mean, if Barkley's there at 7, you turn in the card very quickly and you go take a shot of joy.
That's right. Yeah, you line them shots up and you do a shot. After this, it's something special. Yep. Hey, great question for you. What are you doing for the draft? Are you streaming? Are you going to be on Twitter? Are you going to be on Facebook? Where are you going to be at? I mean, again, folks, I'm not saying this because he's my co-host, but this guy here, you have to follow him during the draft. I mean, him and his partner Mark, they're spot on the draft, and I would rather follow them than some of these other guys that we consider to be the draft gurus, and they've done really well. So again, it's one of those things where if you can follow him at Real Bucs Talk on Twitter. Really worth the follow. You'll be glad you did.
Yeah, I mean, what we're doing for the draft, I'll be at Mark's house, and we'll just be watching it there. And I don't know if we're going to do a streaming or have anything live. We will be live on Twitter. We'll be live tweeting throughout the draft. I think, depending on who the Bucs pick, we might have a live video of us jumping in the pool, just depending on whether it's Saquon Barkley. If it is Barkley, we might do a Jason Light style jump in the pool with clothes on and everything and just jump in for joy. So we might be doing that. We definitely will be taking shots as well. With every quarterback that is taken, we're going to have a shot because that's a victory for the Bucs. So, but yeah, we'll definitely be doing something. I don't know if we're going to have like a live video, maybe we'll plan something out and we can do a live commentary beforehand or something. I don't know.
And I'll be happy to chime in and do it. And like you, I'm probably going to do a shot depending on who they get. I don't know.
Okay.
Again, I don't have a dog in the race, but again, I'm definitely down to do a shot for any reason. Even if it's not football related, it could be, the Rays could win a game. I'll do a shot for that too. So
there you go.
But no, I'm the closer we get, the more exciting it gets. And again, there's not a lot to talk about right now, but we'll continue to try to get special guests on to give their perspective. Next week we should have somebody pretty special on as well. So again, we're getting ready to get out of here, but Mike, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, and I'll give your final thoughts.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, follow us on Real Bucs Talk. Check out the site realbuckstalk.com. We're just going to have more draft stuff coming up pretty much daily. I do a lot of good videos as far as on our Twitter, so we'll have that coming up as far as breakdowns of players. I got a good thread of Nick Chubb up there yesterday, so just more stuff that's going to be coming out and getting prepared. And if I hear anything as far as rumors or what I think the Bucs might be doing, I will definitely share it with you guys. And always ask questions if you want to talk draft or anything Bucs related, or it could be NFL related. I don't mind talking about how bad the Browns are going to be again this year, or how good the Eagles are going to be. So anything NFL related, Bucs related, you can ask me or my friend Mark as well. So he's on there as well. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun. We're only 15 days away from the draft, so I can't wait. And go Bucs.
That's right. And for me, guys, I want to thank you guys again. It's really amazing how much activity is in the chat, and I really appreciate a lot of the comments. It's been entertaining.
Yes,
there's been some there's been some wrestling, kind of alluding to wrestling. Man, I'm still hyped up. We got the dog, we brought the dog in here and everything. We don't mess around. We don't discriminate. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're going to get on here, if you're a dog or a cat, it doesn't matter who you are. If you want to get on Buck What You Heard, it's possible. Anything's possible. But again, thank you everybody, and I really appreciate it. I'll let you know what's going on with me for the draft, kind of trying to finalize some stuff. And again, I know we had talked about, getting on the radio. That is not, I haven't, listen, it's coming. It's a little bit slower happening, but it's coming. And, just stay tuned. You're going to appreciate it. And we're going to really be doing some big things. I will be doing some t-shirt giveaways coming up, as we get closer to the draft. And so, it's just something to basically stay tuned. The majority of the time when I talk about the Bucs, I'm on Twitter, and you can reach me at Super Heavyweight, and just follow me. I'll follow you back, and I'll let you know what's going on with the shirt. So again, thank you guys so much for checking it out. B Loggins, absolutely. Again, thank you guys all for checking us out, and again, special thanks to Pat Donovan. Really great guy. If you get a chance to follow him, great guy. The Goon Squad, you gotta love it. Pat and Aaron show. I really appreciate it. So good night, everybody, and thank you for checking us out. And remember, Buck What You Heard.